You're listening to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, the show that proves no one stumbles upon success ever. With your host, Lou Need. Every Mondays and Thursdays, we deliver cold hard evidence behind the power of a robust morning routine. Get ready to be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lunid, and today I have the honor of introducing a very special guest to the show, Dr. Alison K. She is a world traveler who was also both a teacher and administrator within the international school system in Asia for 10 years. She intensively studied ancient practices that work with subtle energies and holistic health practices while she was there. Before doing and currently, she facilitates courageously rewarding energy medicine sessions for clients worldwide. Dr. Alison, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
It is my pleasure. I'm looking forward to our chat today. All things holistic and energy related. So You were in Asia for about 10 years. Go ahead and tell us about your journey here thus far.
Oh my God, really? We need a lot of time for that, Lunid. I want to say the bottom line is that I've always been working in service. First, it was to the earth, and then realizing that the machinery wasn't ready to shift yet back in the 90s, I switched to working with individuals in their consciousness to raise and expand the consciousness. And as that reaches threshold, then we'd have collective shift. Mm-hmm. So I went into the classroom teaching, and alongside that gave energy medicine sessions and holistic health and wellness. I was already teaching meditation, and I was already trained in my first of 5 energy medicine modalities that I used to then combine and create the vibration upgrade system when I came back from Asia. So while running these sessions alongside classroom teaching, I was in the public school system. I was aware that I wasn't feeling adventurous. I wasn't feeling a lot of fun. I wasn't making enough money to cover basic needs, and it wasn't okay with me. So I found out about the international school system, got job offers around the planet, went to Asia because amongst the traditional Chinese, I saw that as the seat of who understands how to work with power, work with energy, and then also be able to help me better affect more robust results for my clients in the sessions. So while over there, I studied subtle energy. I got my yoga teacher certification in India. I learned and began to teach eventually Qigong, lots of stuff.
Yeah.
I came back to the States I wrote my first of my 4 books. The 4th book releases today. My first book was What If There's Nothing Wrong? It published through Hay House. And I wrote it my last year in Asia, going for my PhD, about the differences in how we suffer in the West because we pay no attention to the power of our mind and run from our mind instead. And we don't tend to look inside the way that it's done in the East, at least understood. I don't mean we need to do it the same way. I mean that there's this sense, and I've seen it with clients throughout the years, especially when they're from a certain background. There's like this sense of I get to run from my crazy, when the bottom line Buddhist premise is all human minds are neurotic. Here are the tools via meditation to work with your own particular flavor of neuroses.
Right.
Once we work with our consciousness, then that affects our subtle energy and how much flows or doesn't flow, how much creativity, how much money, how much joy, how much love, how much vitality, how much intuitive guidance is in our lives or not. So helping in the West understand the increased suffering we have because we don't at all pay attention to the invisible or pay more attention to the tangible, the physical measurements of success, the materialism. That's been what I've been working on for the last decade since back in the States to help with this collective shift. And so that's my story.
Yes. And I agree with you. In the Western world, we are more prone to meditation versus meditation, right? We're not letting the body, the mind actually be able to heal itself or even give it that quiet time. So I know you have your PhD, and how can one start getting to that energy level, that frequency to start manifesting it? Just about, the abundance that you talk about, right? Anything that the one desires, just that sometimes we block that flow.
Totally. I mean, that's the layers of the consciousness. When I talk about going in and working within, Lundy, there's like, do you have any brothers or sisters?
I do. Yeah. I have three.
Okay. So I have three as well. So you know how you might have compared, the treatment from your parents to one of your siblings versus how they treated you?
Yes.
Okay. So from ages 0 to 8, we're busy. Ages 0 to 2, we don't even disconnect from our parents. Everything they think and feel, we're feeling and thinking. And then at age 2, when we start going, no, we're separating an ego identity. Mm-hmm. And then we're looking around asking, how does life on planet Earth work? Oh, my sister gets that loving attention, that smile, that yumminess I want from mom when she's a good little girl and follows mom around. Therefore, in order for me to get love, I have to be a good little girl. So that goes wired into the subconscious. And as I clear these blocks with the techniques I've learned, fascinating to me to look at that. It's totally illogical, but it's this little childlike logic, these blocks that then we operate from the rest of our lives. They're lodged in the subconscious. Traumas go into the subconscious. Then in the unconscious, the conclusions like conditioning. Like in our society, I have to be a certain way in order to get blank. But they're all of this is under the radar of even the conscious mind, which is what we see when we sit in meditation. So there's so much more to what it's considered to be. About 85% of our daily life, we're choosing to live from all that back of the head consciousness. So it's only like 15% of what you're using to create your life from is what you hear for thoughts. I'm not saying everything back there is bad at all, but what I'm saying is there's so much more available when you ask about manifesting abundance. To whip off a quick answer saying, yeah, just do steps 1, 2, and 3, you'll be there. It's a lie. And I know that social media loves to portray that, but it's just not true. There's a foundational shift from recognizing that your power is within you. And once you change the arrangement of your energy and how it's flowing, then your physical world around you changes. Based on a traditional Chinese, quantum physics has known this, and we're switching right now from a more Newtonian physics-based world where everything's physical and reliable and solid and predictable and stable. Since 2012, we've been moving into a more quantum physics kind of life with chaos and sudden jumps and leaps. And in that, it's also the idea of traditional Chinese medicine, blood follows where my qi goes. So qi is energy. Blood follows where energy goes. Material follows energy. So recognizing our power to change the physical world, not from manipulating outside of us, but working within.
It's an inside job. I totally agree with you. I love that you said you change your thoughts and then your circumstances, your surrounding begin to change, because we seriously are operating on autopilot, right? 95% of the time we are operating from the subconscious mind. And the programming, as you were saying, we learned early on, some of it may not be suitable for the person we desire to be, or for the things that we want to attract and get into our life.
Yeah, here's an example. I work a lot with, because I lived in India and in amongst the Chinese, I get a lot of Asian American women, or even like Asian Australian women. And what I see culturally conditioning them is I'm not supposed to ask for more. I'm supposed to be satisfied with this level of material goods. And if I go for more, there's something wrong with that. So they sabotage their own success. And so I run clearings on those blocks. So there's cultural conditioning too within every culture. Jewish, African, Indian, Chinese. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's cultural. And that holds a huge chunk of how we end up on autopilot and what choices we see. But Lunid, it's also what choices we don't ever even perceive that are possible, that just don't even meet our radar. And it's part of what I love doing is because once we get beyond like the boring, for me, like it's not boring, but they're less fun, like clearing out, like I'm not as good at, I'm not loved, I'm not lovable, I'm unworthy. But when I can get to the point of opening up the potential in somebody where they're really having like the flow of their subtle energy running throughout their column, it's just much more exciting, helping people live from their potential once they get beyond like everyday life living without understanding that there's so much more available.
How do we sustain it? How do we keep at that vibration?
It's an interesting aspect. That's a great question. I get it all the time. It requires work. Like it requires, I'm sorry to say that. Like, I wish I could say, go listen to this YouTube video I did for 10 minutes every day and you'll be set, man. But it doesn't work that way, So first off, taking care of your energy hygiene. Like you brush your teeth, clear your energy field. There's a couple of different ways to do that. But in that, recognizing that we're so porous, we're like sponges. So you and me are not separate. So what you're perceiving or thinking, and to some degree, I can feel. Mm-hmm. And I could be like looking at a menu for Thai food at a restaurant, and I'm thinking in my mind, is this one good? And then somebody behind me says the one down the street's better out loud, as if they heard me.
Right.
So that also means that like during the COVID times, everybody's fear and worry and grief, it's all a soup. And so we pick up a lot more. And what I see a lot of the time is people make it theirs. So then they feel depressed, or they feel more anxious, or they feel more worried, instead of understanding, wait a minute, I can step up and take command of my own field, clear it, back off this fear, and work with my own fear and my own self. And that's really how you start. To sustain it is a constant check-in with yourself at a level of being able to be detached enough to observe your thinking mind, to ask your thoughts, wait a minute, is that even true? Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of steps in there. And the major step is to start having a practice that helps you detach from your thoughts. Meditation is one. What my work is another one. And then question your thoughts. If that, wait a minute, that's not even true. Or is that even
right? And changing the meaning, right? Changing the meaning that you give these thoughts, because they're meaningless until you attach a belief to them. You attach a meaning to it, and then that becomes part of your identity, and you start living it.
Yes. And look at how this is visual for those of you listening right now, but she just went like into her hands, like clasping and living it and like, but that's the mind-body connection. That's when we have that unconscious or subconscious belief, there's a response, depending on what chakra it's related to. And so it's a trigger. And what that means is that we don't have conscious control over it. So whenever I see a red car, because my mother had a bad accident and she died in the red car as a kid, I have an automatic trigger. My body goes into freezing mode when I see a red car. So clearing that mind-body connection is what I mean when I say clearing what's in the unconscious and subconscious, so that you're then freed up to not have that meaningfulness that you unconsciously or subconsciously project out there. Because we're just a bunch of projectors on necks, all of us.
Yeah. And how do you do that in the morning? Because I know the morning is the best time to find yourself, to actually arm yourself and guard yourself, your mind, your body, your spirit, so that you're prepared for whatever energy or whatever the day brings your way. So as an entrepreneur, how do you find yourself using the energy clearance to thrive really through the day?
My clients and students throughout the years seem to go to sleep. They listen to my clearings at night and they wake up listening to them. What I do is an entirely different story to sustain that, honestly. So the Chinese call sleep little death. And we do stuff in our sleep that is beautiful. There's all sorts of levels, right? But when we're transitioning back into our body in the morning, giving yourself the space to get into your body, whether it's getting your feet out on the earth. Where are you?
I'm in San Diego, yeah. California.
It felt like you're in a warm climate. So I'm in Florida. So when you can, in warmth, get your feet on the earth immediately, like when you wake up. If you can't do that, then you can put touch your elbows, like get related to your body. Hold them a little bit, or you could take your left hand, women, men, right hand, and put it over your upper belly, like what's called the solar plexus, and hold it there. Let your palm be on your upper belly for a good minute. And just as you're standing, like with feet shoulder width apart, because that will help bring your consciousness back down into your body. And this is the traditional power center, will center. So there's a lot that we in our daily lives operate from the upper belly. That's the third chakra I'm talking about. So if you have like bells or white sage, white sage has been measured, the smoke, to remove positive ions from the environment, which is negative energy. It's been scientifically measured to dissipate negative energy. So I use white sage every morning. But then there's bells that you can use. The Tibetans love to use bells. In a sense, checking in with the part of you that's higher than your desires and your wants and your complaints. Whatever practice it is, having it I mean, I have a meditation product on my website, and it's a way to get into the practice. And then I explain what happens in the first 10 minutes, what happens in the second 10 minutes, and what happens in the third 10 minutes. Most people feel like they can't meditate because they sit down and their mind gets loud. And that's exactly the nature of it. You don't sit down and have a silent mind. You learn, there's a whole thing behind it. And I don't feel like we have the time here to talk about it. So you can go to my website and look at the meditation product and get that. But another way to possibly, what I'm trying to say is whatever technique you have to connect in with something bigger than you, beyond the complaining, whining, demanding mind for at least 10 minutes. It should be sustained longer than that.
And it should be intentional. You have to make the time. You have to devote the time. This is the time I'm going to allocate to do this, to be silent, to be mindful, to just be sometimes even mindless, right? Because there's a lot of buzz around being mindful and being focused. Sometimes we just want to wonder. There's a quote that says, those who wonder are not lost. Essentially, you want to give the mind a break and just kind of just be. The thing about being, we're so busy doing, we need to just be and let the mind just kind of float.
Indeed. Yeah. In the process of meditation, what you just described, I'm looking at you the way I am because it's a good understanding of the colloquialisms that are happening out there right now. And then there's so much more beyond that. Like once you start in the last 10 minutes, if you meditated for 30 minutes, that's when you start to connect in with the being that you're talking about. The first 10 minutes is working on the hardwiring increase. So you get increased focus, concentration. The second 10-minute chunk is more peace and calm. Your physiology starts to change. So there's actual techniques and there's actual measurements of how to do what you're talking about. And to sit down and expect yourself to just be, it's such an American way to say it because I've visualized you get 5 minutes to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is like the constant interesting way. Like people want the brief blurbs. And if you really want the result, it's not 5 minutes here and there. That will help. But what you said is the expansiveness. The idea of meditation is you sit down and you observe your thoughts. So what that means is that you're wanting to match what you said in the explanation, in that you are still having a focus, but the focus is to not have focus. And that's all of the ancient wisdom teachings, that kind of irony. Mm-hmm. So if you're sitting there saying, I have to just be, and your mind has a thought for 5, and that's what you're doing for the first 5 minutes of your day, your mind is going to be totally sluggish if you only do it for 5 minutes, coming from sleep to wake time. Yeah. You're going to still be more in your dream time. That's why I'm saying something about get in your body first to meditate, because it's still going to be more like your dream state. If you want to have the fresh alert consciousness, you have to first make sure that you're fully in your body.
I see.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that. And I'm sure a lot of my listeners can gain a lot of value from it, because it's good to get the in-depth breakdown like you do. You know the science behind it. You studied it and you practiced for over 10 years, and you help your clients with it. That we're hearing a different approach to meditation, which is awesome. So I'm really, really grateful. Is that part of your morning routine? Tell us, how do you get up, dress up, and show up?
I know that that's the name, and I love the name of your show and my morning routine. I'm hinting at parts of it, but I've never given it away. My most advanced masterminders and students want to know that, and I just don't give it away. Sorry.
This is
You learn with me, then you can adopt your own practices that work for you.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that I hold close to my heart.
I mean, does it entail, so it entails meditation. This is a show about morning routines, and you come on to tell us about it. So does it entail exercising, mind work? Just give us a synapse of what the listener can gather from it to see how you're successful and you're thriving. How is your morning routine has contributed to that? That's the gist of the summary.
Yeah, I'm not tending to personalize it. I'm talking as if I'm talking to my students and clients. So one of the things is clearing yourself, whether it's with bells or it's with sage. And the next thing is to get in your body.
Perfect.
And the next thing is to work with creating more spaciousness between your thoughts, whatever practice you're going to use for that.
Yeah.
And after a certain point, when you've gotten light enough and less mind dominant, a practice to engage with connecting with the greater field of all life. is good.
Yeah, I love that. It's surrounded around the mind, body, and soul, but synergy and connecting to the greater power. I love that piece of it. And that's important to set you up for the day. Dr. Alison, please tell us, how can we connect with you?
You can go to Amazon if you want. My books are all in there, Alison J.K. And then vibrationalupgrade.com is my website.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and actually sharing insight on the importance of energy. We're a bundle of energy, and you exemplify that and you clarify that so clearly that we need to actually be intentional about clearing the chakras and clearing the energy to be successful.
That's a pretty orchid plant, matches your hair. It's a nice contrast to you, right behind you. It's a lot of symmetry.
Thank you so much.
That's flowing right into your hair. It's a cool view.
As the energy person, you see it. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
All right, morning enthusiasts, that's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you love the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes or Google Play. While you're at it, tell a friend about the show. Be sure to visit bestmorningroutineever.com and our Facebook group to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic free bonus content. Until next time,